Yo, what's going on YouTube? How you guys doing? This video, I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, even though I tend to like to rant a lot. We're going to be quickly covering how to play each class in Evil Dead, and we're going to talk about basically their strengths and weaknesses, and where they excel and where they're very, very weak. And I'm going to talk about a lot of things that I notice players are doing wrong, and try to maybe guide you in a direction that is correctly, so that way you can maybe improve and be a better team player. So the first thing I want to cover, before I really get into anything in particular, I want to cover what it is exactly that people struggle with in this game, okay? So right now, the current meta of Evil Dead for the demon side is to basically find the survivors early and then spawn up basic units and then possess those basic units and basically attack the shit out of the survivors with basic units. So that's like the first and foremost something I need to address. That is the current like quote unquote meta of the game, if you can even consider that a thing already, because the game's only been out for a little while. But that's the current like most efficient killer playstyle that most people follow, and that's the one that most people struggle to deal with as a survivor. The reason why is because possessed units are way stronger, they're way tankier, and they do way more damage. So what happens is the killer will find you relatively quickly and then attack you with these very strong units that if you leave them unchecked or if you don't handle them correctly, will just do insane amounts of damage, sometimes even downing your teammates, and then the snowball will start from there because the killer will gain threat levels, and then it'll all just go to hell from there. So you need to be able to handle that really well. That's like the key to honestly playing this game at like a decent level, is being able to handle that early game onslaught. But we're going to talk about all phases of the game as well. So before I deep dive into the actual classes, one more general tip I'll give you is, as survivor, a big thing that a lot of people need to learn in this game is a big thing about, especially the early game, but even in the mid game, a big thing is like not really knowing exactly how to fight, even though that is really important, but even when to fight. That's a big thing. You sometimes don't have to fight, right? If you're playing a kind of weaker character and you get found early by a possessed unit, sometimes you can just leave. You know, use windows, like get distance away from the possessed unit and then get in a car and drive away. Don't be afraid to just leave. Don't be afraid to not take a 1v1. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how the actual combat works, and I'll be going into a little bit more detail about like leaving and taking fights, but just keep that in mind going forward. We're only going to be covering like the gameplay around like possessed units early, because I think that's the most important thing. I think if the demon player you're playing against isn't possessing units early and doing damage to you, then you really shouldn't be losing to them anyway. So that's the main thing we're going to be focusing on. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. So there's 4 classes. There's leader, warrior, hunter, and support. Now they have like a very loose description of them to the left. Leaders have auras that improve their stats, and they're also more resistant to fear. Warriors are just big tanky people with lots of health and also strong melee. Hunters are basically glass cannon damage dealers with gun damage. They have a lot of gun damage. They can carry more ammo, and they have a lot of good stamina upgrades. And then supports are just really weak in combat. However, they have abilities that usually do support-esque things, as well as they have a built-in passive that makes it so that if they use any kind of a healing or a shield, it'll also affect everybody around them. So they can basically give AoE heals for free just by healing themselves near their teammates, which is really strong. So before I go into any more details, let me just show you guys a quick chart I threw together that shows you the numbers as far as damage dealing and as far as like their health goes, to kind of give you an idea of how tanky and how much damage these guys do. So you can see here with this chart, we have it broken out into 3 columns. We have the first column is the health. The second one is the melee damage. It's basically the number of damage they do with a basic hand axe. That's like a 35 damage base. And then a base revolver body shot is the last one. So 150 damage is what it should be doing. And these are like basically the numbers that I got through testing. So basically you can see the different buffs and debuffs. For instance, leader class gets 0 buff or change at all to their melee damage. They do the exact number that it shows. Whereas gun damage, they do an extra 30% extra gun damage. Warrior class does 50% extra bonus damage for melee, which is a lot, but then 50% less damage for guns, so very little gun damage. Hunters get 30% less melee, 50% more gun, and then supports get 20% less damage in each. So this is all before collections and also the in-game upgrades come into play, and this is really important, and you might want to refer back to this, because you'll see that there's some major differences, right? For instance, just to point out a couple big ones, like the warrior class does over double the melee damage as hunter. Hunters generally do basically no melee damage, and also hunters do literally 3 times the gun damage as warriors by default, literally just by default, with no changes, no upgrades at all, just by default 3 times the damage. This is an important thing to keep in mind whenever something like a legendary gun drops, right? You know, a hunter with a legendary gun is going to be way more impactful than a warrior, and same thing with like a legendary melee weapon. A legendary melee weapon in the hands of a warrior is going to be much more efficient than in the hands of someone like a hunter. The health stats also important too. Warriors are obviously way tankier than the rest, and the 2 numbers there, the first number is where they start out baseline, and then the last number is how high they can go with their in-game upgrades. That's without collections, just the in-game upgrades. So you can see that both support and hunter start out at 900, but then hunter can only get to 950, whereas support can get the whole way up to 1100. So that's why hunters are very, very squishy. They're like always like the weakest in terms of like the amount of health that they have. Warriors obviously are the tankiest. Leaders actually start out slightly tankier than supports, but end up kind of like flatlining out at basically the same spot as them. So they're basically the same in terms of tankiness as supports. So if we look back at our classes now, leader class is basically all about aura giving. This class is basically like they buff up people around them. They have a built-in aura, and you can make their aura bigger using the things in their collection tree. You can make their aura bigger and also like more powerful. They also do a lot of just general objective things. They get like a lot of bonuses in that regard. But however, you got to be really careful if you play this class, because a lot of people might not realize how weak leader players are or leader characters are in combat, specifically melee combat. Now again, it's a little bit deceiving because a lot of these characters, like for instance King Arthur, or sorry, not King Arthur, Lord Arthur is he kind of looks like he's designed to be a melee character, right? Like he gets this big bonus in his power when he has a sword. He gets like a flaming sword and he does a fuck ton of damage. He also has these upgrades for melee damage. And don't get me wrong, you can do a lot of damage if you get like a really good rarity sword and you pop his power, but he's just so squishy. Like you just don't have the tankiness to really like go toe to toe with a demon, right? Like if a demon's swinging on you, you're gonna lose your health so fast. Like you're not like a tanky warrior class. You're just not really built that way. And on top of that, your base multiplier for melee is really low by default, like really low. Again, it's literally just 1 for 1. And weirdly enough, the leader class has a really high gun damage multiplier, like really high. Like it's like close to hunters, which is actually surprising. They also have upgrades where they can carry more ammo too. So I actually think the leader class is best played with guns as your primary damage, right? I think you should be using melees as a way to maybe try to help your team to stun things, right? Like if you're trying to stun lock somebody, you can use your melees to try to help with doing balance bar damage, but I don't think you should focus on melee for your actual damage. If you're trying to like actually like DPS down a boss or something, you should be using guns, because first off, you do more damage, and second off, you really don't want to be like face-to-face meleeing people when you're not that tanky. This class in general is pretty good though. I would recommend at the start of the game staying near your warrior class, because again, you're not strong enough to 1v1 a possessed unit, even a basic unit. So if you end up like going toe to toe with a possessed basic unit early as a hunter, you will just die. You will just straight up die. You won't be able to do it. So you should stay close to your warrior class to have them help you deal with them. And basically, I would suggest building around things like your aura being stronger. I mean, obviously it depends on the character, but your aura being stronger is good. And I think balance bar damage of melee weapons is also really good too, to try to help stun lock any basics that come in. You're going to see me talk about balance bar a lot, because balance bar is a really, really big deal. And it's a really, really powerful thing that people need to be investing in more. This is a very strong upgrade, but obviously all the aura as well as objective upgrades are really good as well. Out of the leaders, I would say Ashe is probably the most viable, as I would say maybe the only viable one. I would maybe say like the rest are like decent. Like Annie's okay too. I think Ashe is probably the best, mostly just because of the fear resistance. The 20% fear resistance he gives that gets bumped up to 40 with this is really, really strong and kind of comes in clutch later on. But for the most part, just keep in mind that if you're playing leader class, you're a little bit weak in combat, so stay close to your others. Okay, moving on to the warrior class. These guys are the tanks of the game. And if you've ever played any game that has different rules like tanks and DPSs, you probably have a general idea of how they're probably played already, right? You want to get tanky and you want to be able to CC. Now, I think a lot of people kind of play this class wrong, because I think a lot of people try to play these guys like melee DPSs, which I don't think is good. Like, I don't think these guys should be built to do damage. Like, they can do a decent bit of damage if you build them that way, but I don't think that's the most effective way to do it. Because honestly, hunters do an insane amount of damage, and even like leaders can do a lot of damage with guns, and you'll honestly do a lot of damage even if you don't build that way. But I think the most important thing is giving crowd control for your teammates. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important classes towards team play, if not one of the most important classes. Because again, with the current meta of possessed units finding you early, it's very, very hard to deal with. And the #1 best way to deal with it is by stunning the unit as fast as you can with balance bar damage. If you guys don't know what balance bar damage is, maybe I should clarify a little bit more. Basically, there's a white bar below the health of the unit that you're fighting. And if that bar drops down to 0, the unit will be stunned. So stunning a unit is probably the best way to stop them from killing you. You know, if a possessed basic is jumping on your healers early game, the best thing you could do is drain their balance bar and stun them to get them the hell off your healers. Again, this is very similar to basically any game that has tanks. you know, where the idea is like basically jump on the person that's going after your weaker units and take aggro as well as stun them. So I would highly suggest building your warriors very tanky with things like more maximum HP, maybe even like more shield and stuff with like damage reduction, and then most importantly, balance bar. Like these 3 upgrades, if you get all 3 of them, can be insane. 25% more balance bar damage here, 30% more if you're using blunt weapons, and then 20% more if you're using heavy attacks. So if you use heavy attacks on blunt weapons, this is what, like 75% more balance bar damage, which is a lot. That is a lot. You find like a sledgehammer on a warrior that's built like this, and you're going to be stunning shit left and right. And again, I cannot say how important this is towards team play. If you don't help out your supports by doing this kind of thing, you're going to be basically just leaving them out to dry, and a lot of support players are just going to die to possess units, and then you're going to be, and then the game's going to snowball out of control, and you're going to end up losing. So I would not really recommend towards like doing a ton of damage. Like I know there's a lot of damage upgrades you can get, like damage here, damage here, damage here. There's a lot of like damage upgrades you can get, but I really wouldn't recommend speccing that way. I mean, obviously it might still work given your team comp. Like maybe you can make it work, but I think this is the way that it should be played, and I think if you want to be a good teammate, this is probably the way that I think this should be the standard way that they're played, I think. One last thing to say about hunters before I move on to the next group is don't take good guns, please. If we go back to the chart, you can see, again, if you just look at like the numbers, not even like the percentage, like look at how bad the numbers are compared to everything. Like even supports do a decent bit more damage to you. Like supports do like close to double your damage. Like it's disgusting. You do like 0 gun damage with warrior. The only reason why you should have a gun is to try to help break people out of possession. You should never really be relying on guns for your primary damage, and you definitely shouldn't be taking high rarity guns from your hunters or your leaders or even your supports. You should basically be giving high rarity guns to everybody else except for you first. Okay, moving on to hunters. I think hunters are literally OP as fuck right now. I think they're actually like way overtuned and probably need a nerf. These guys are basically glass cannon damage dealers, like we said earlier. They do an insane amount of gun damage. Like you can literally kill a boss unit in 2 shots of your double barrel if you just like point blank it in the face with a lot of upgrades. And they have insanely high stamina, like a stupid, ridiculous high amount of stamina. And really, like, their damage isn't even really what makes them OP. Like, their damage is really good, and they're obviously built to do that much damage. The problem is that their insane high amounts of stamina makes them basically unkillable. Like, you can get these 2 upgrades where you get 25% more stamina, and then dodges take 35% less, and then you get 5 in-game upgrades of stamina using the in-game tree, and essentially you could just have like infinite stamina. It's absurd. You can dodge like 7 times before you run out of stamina. You also can sprint for like 400 meters before you run out of stamina. It's just ridiculous. Like you get so much stamina, and if you know how to use your dodges, like you get iframes during dodges, like which basically means invulnerability frames. Like essentially when you dodge, there's like a little split second during the dodge. It's not even a split second. It's like a good like half a second during the dodge where you can't take any damage at all. Even if you're like in a corner, like someone can have you backed in a corner and you can be unable to move. And as long as you're timing your dodges correctly, they won't do any damage to you. Like their swings will just go right through you. So if you know how to use these dodges correctly, seeing as how you get so many of them and also your stamina recharges so quickly, you can be almost unkillable. Like you basically need to be swarmed by like an army of darkness, I guess you can call it, to even die. Like if you're not getting swarmed, like any kind of a 1v1, like no one should really be killing you in a 1v1 ever. Between the amount of damage you do and the amount of dodges you get, you should never die in a 1v1. So because this class is so good in a 1v1 scenario, it's actually pretty common for these guys to break away from the team early on. And it's something that I would actually suggest doing if you're confident that you're good with dodges and you know how to survive. Please only do this if you're confident that you know how to use dodges and you know how to survive on your own, like using cars and things. Because if you split away from the team and then you end up dying alone, you are literally the worst teammate ever and you're throwing the entire game. So please be careful if you're going to do this. But if you are a good hunter player and you know that you can survive any 1v1 scenario and you know that you can survive on your own, it's a very, very good idea to leave the rest of the team and go kind of loot on your own and pressure objectives on your own, right? If your other teammates are getting harassed or they're being attacked, you can literally just do all the objectives and then go start either the Kandarian Dagger or the Lost Pages, and that puts pressure on the demon, right? The demon has to decide whether he wants to keep messing with the rest of your team or go defend his objective. And then your teammates can go do the other objective while you pressure the objective alone. The fact that you're basically unkillable right now as a hunter in a 1v1 scenario means that you can literally just do whatever you want. You can just do anything you want. You can just run around and pressure all objectives, and if the demon ever tries to overrun you, and if he ever starts to overrun you, you can just get in a car and leave. Like you don't ever even have to fight, right? If he tries to 1v1 you, you can just dodge around and kill him. If he tries to like 10v1 you, then you just get in a car and leave. And it buys your team so much time. It's a really, really insane strategy. It's super, super good. If you don't want to play alone though, and you want to play with your team, I'd highly recommend just sticking near your warriors and letting them handle the most of the commons until you get found. And then once you get found, like once the demon realizes where you guys are as a team, use your gun. Just use your gun, man. Use your freaking guns. What I would recommend is picking up ammo of all types of weapons. Like, if you have a long gun ammo, cool, pick up long gun ammo, but also pick up pistol ammo and special ammo. Pick up all ammo types and just stockpile all ammo types. And then don't be shy about using your gun. Just use your gun on everything. Honestly, just shoot shit. You'll kill most things one shot. And you'll find that some weapons are really easy to keep high ammo counts of, things like revolvers, because you'll kill things in one shot, but then also you'll get a lot of ammo back. So you'll find that some guns are really, really good at keeping high ammo, and you can just kind of shoot the entire game through. And then if you run out of ammo, you can just find a gun of a different ammo type, you know? Even if it's like a gray gun, it doesn't matter. There's been a lot of games where I've dropped like a purple revolver for like a gray hunting rifle, and it's fine, because I have like 50 shots in a gray hunting rifle. I think 50 gray hunting rifle shots is way better than like 10 purple revolver shots, you know? So just pick up ammo, pick up all types of ammo, no matter what. If you run low on ammo, swap guns. Don't be shy about using guns as long as you're already found. Don't use guns until you're found, because you don't want to like, it doesn't even really matter if you get found. You don't want to get like your supports found. Like you don't want to get like your weaker teammates found. And then yeah, I mean, just go ham, shoot shit. If the boss spawns up, when the boss spawns up, use your guns. Make sure to focus them down. Use your guns. You're the DPS. You need to be the ones that you need to be the one that's like dealing with like the bosses, and you also need to be dealing with like swarms. Like when you're actually on the objectives and you're getting swarmed by a lot of units, it's your job to be killing things quickly, right? If things aren't dying and everybody's getting swarmed, then that means that your hunter player is bad. They need to be killing things. Like just kill everything. Make room for people, right? Kill all the little basics. When the boss spawns up, do damage to him really, really quickly. Just make sure things are dying. Use your guns. I see so many hunter players that just run around meleeing, and it's the most painful thing ever. Please use your guns. Also, if you're not playing hunter, drop ammo for your hunter, okay? Like especially if they're pinging it, drop ammo for your hunter. Feel free to collect all types of ammo type yourself, even if you're other classes, and then just drop ammo for your hunter if you want, because trust me, they will carry you. As long as they're actually using guns, they will just kill everything. Trust me. And then last up is support. These guys are basically just completely dog shit in combat, but they get that really big bonus of being able to like AoE heal with their shemps, which is crazy, right? Being able to like heal all 4 survivors at the exact same time. And they also get a bonus where their heal does more. It does like a higher percent. So the fact that they get these really big heals that are also AoE is a very big deal, right? If your whole team is getting beat up and you're all low on health, and then someone just walks in the middle of all 4 of you and chugs a heal, and then you all 4 heal, it's basically like 4 heals in 1. It's just insane value. It's such good value. So support class is really, really good in terms of team play, although they are very bad in combat. They get the 20% debuff to both melee and guns, so they do very little damage. Again, just like I said with leader class, I would recommend focusing more on balance bar when it comes to melee, because I think your primary concern is going to be more about stunning whatever it is that you're fighting, so that you can, you know, not take damage yourself, as opposed to actually killing it. And I'd also recommend maybe speccing into guns a little bit. If you do want to do damage as a support, I would recommend going into guns. I don't think melee damage is really good. Like, there's like a melee damage and gun damage you can go into. I wouldn't really recommend melee damage. If anything, if you wanted to spec into melee, I'd recommend specking into balance bar damage, because again, that goes a far away. But I think you're probably better off staying at a safe distance and using guns. You're probably better off. Other than that, I think the most important thing is getting upgrades like these, where you can carry more shemps and more amulets. And then basically the idea is you just want to have a lot. You want to like stockpile up on both shields and heals. And then while your team is fighting, you want to just heal people. You want to keep people alive. Like you have the AoE heal. So literally if you have a warrior, right? Like say you have a tanky warrior that's currently like duking it out with a possessed unit or with a boss, and they're like getting hit, right? And their health is like dropping, and it's going down to like below half. You can literally just walk up beside them while they're fighting and drink a soda in the middle of them two fighting, and it'll just heal your warrior. Like, they don't have to take a break from fighting to heal. You can just heal for them, and they can keep fighting and keep tanking all the damage, which is exactly what you want. So that's a really, really big thing. Keeping people's health up is huge and a very, very important thing. Obviously, like, they do some other things too. Like, both Cheryl and Ashe have like fear reduction that they can do as well, which is really, really good to micromanage later. But that's kind of more advanced stuff that I'm not going to get into too much detail about. Like, fear management is a whole separate topic that I won't get into. I kind of just want to teach the basics in this video. And that's really it. I would recommend during the early game, I would say stick near your warrior. Like, stay near your warrior class for sure. You don't have to like hug their asshole, but at least stay in like the same compound as them. That way, if you get found by like the demon and he, you know, has a possessed basic on you, you could run to your warrior and basically have them help you stumble them with balance bar, right? If not that, if you like maybe don't have a warrior class with you, or if your warrior class is a solo queue teammate that runs off on his own in a car or something, and if you're basically stranded and you can't be near a warrior, then at least just stay near a car. Try to stay near your car at all times. And if you ever are alone as support and a possessed unit jumps on you, don't fight it alone, please. I see this happen a lot too, where like support classes will try to 1v1 fight a possessed unit. Don't do it. Leave. Either find a teammate that can help you kill it, or get in a car and drive away. Please don't try to 1v1 possessed units. It will not work. You are so weak in combat. Please don't do it. I think that's it, like, basically as far as classes go. So I'll talk about real quick what I think like the ideal scenario and strategy is, just to kind of get that out there too. Say you had one of each class, right? Say you had like one of each class. I would recommend what you do, and we'll just use the Ashes as examples since there's an Ashe in each class. I would recommend that the Hunter Ashe runs off on his own immediately and separates from the team and basically loots completely solo, and maybe even does the objectives, right? Like, I would recommend the other three, the Warrior Ashe, the Leader Ashe, and the Support Ashe. I would recommend those three go and loot a compound together and travel around together, looting together. I'd recommend that the Hunter Ashe run off on his own and basically loot completely solo. And once they're really far away from the team, you can even start shooting guns, because actually if the demon finds the hunter player, at least right now in the current patch of Evil Dead where hunters are as OP as they are, it's actually a good thing. Like, you want to get found as a hunter player, because then you could just waste all their time. Like, they'll never actually kill you because you have 1,000,000 dodges and 1,000,000 stamina. So even if you're a good enough hunter player, you can literally just let yourself get found and then just run the killer around all day and make him waste all of his time while your teammates loot for free, you know? If that happens, then you can just run around and get the objectives, or let your teammates get the objectives. Either one works. But once the objectives are done, then, you know, everything changes. Up until then, the other three should be looting together, and if the demon finds them, then again, the warrior should be built around balance bar damage. The leader could also, I mean, all three of them could be built around balance bar damage, but mostly the warrior, because they get the most upgrades in that department. And if you get found and you get attacked by like possessed basics, essentially anybody that gets attacked should run to the warrior, and then the warrior should like step up and basically just stun the unit, right? Stun the unit, and then either like just fight him and make him waste all of his energy trying to fight you, or you guys can just get in a car and leave. But for the most part, that stun needs to come in. The stun is the most important thing. Nobody should be trying to 1v1 any of the units. You should all be getting together, and if there's ever a possessed unit, you guys need to deal with it as a team. There's no like letting somebody 1v1 a possessed unit. You want to deal with it as a team, and then loot as much as you can, and then just kind of stay alive and keep your loot up while that's happening. As long as the objectives are getting done while this is happening, it should be okay. Once the 3 map pieces are found and the lost pages and the Kandarian dagger are available, the hunter player can pressure one of them if he wants, and the other 3 can go to the other, depending on how far away they are. If they're really close to each other, then you guys should just group up as 4. If they're very separated, like if they're like 300 plus meters away from each other, then you can literally have the hunter player sit on one, and then the other 3 go to the other, and kind of like split the objectives. And then no matter who the demon goes to, he'll either go to the 3 and then probably not be able to kill them, or he'll go to the 1 and not be able to kill him either, and the one player can just buy time for the other 3. And no matter what, you're fine, right? Like no matter what, you're gonna get at least one objective done. So it ends up working out. If the objectives are close, then you should just stay together. And if you want to just group up from the get-go, then you could do this from the get-go too, where basically you just do the same thing as before, right? If anything is possessed, the warrior class tries to jump on it and break its balance bar. The hunter class can literally just shoot shit and kill everything, right? Again, as hunter class, a big thing I think is, before you start doing damage to the main unit, you should be trying to clear up the extra stuff, right? If there's 5 units and one of them is possessed, you want to be killing the 4 AI controlled units to like clear up space and make room for your team to be able to fight, and then focus on the possess unit, because you can literally one-shot things. Like, you have that benefit over the other classes where you can literally one-tap basically everything. So you can basically just shoot all the AI around and like clear out space, and then once there's like enough space, once there's not like units everywhere, even if there's like a couple around, you know, you can then start focusing on the possess unit, and then there you go. You're basically good to go. And that's essentially it. I don't think I have much more to say. Please don't take strong melees if you're a hunter. Please don't focus on using melee combat if you're a hunter. Like, just common mistakes I see, just to end on this. The common mistakes I see all the time is Arthur players thinking that they're tanks and trying to melee people and dying. Don't do that. Like, just don't think you're a tanky melee character just because your character has some melee bonuses. Hunter players using melees all the time and never shooting their guns. I can't tell you how many like level 25 hunters I've had on my team that literally end the game with like 8k damage because they're just running around meleeing. Even Kelly has like these bonuses to melee damage. Even with these bonuses to melee damage, guys, her base melee is so low that it doesn't matter. You're still going to be doing no damage. Don't melee, man. Like, just don't do it. Just don't melee as a hunter. It's not worth it. I'm telling you. Like, it's only worth it in the early game if you're trying to like not get found. But once you're found, just shoot your damn guns, man. Just shoot your guns. And yeah, and then warriors, make sure that you're jumping on all the possess units and make sure you're built for bounce bar. I mean, those are the common mistakes I see. As long as you guys aren't doing that, then you should be good, right? You guys should be playing well as a team. And the faster people learn this, the faster that solo queue survivor will be a lot more enjoyable. Smile. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys like this. Leave the video a like if you guys liked it. Subscribe if you want as well, because I'm going to be uploading literally daily. And I'm also live on Twitch 6 nights a week over at twitch.tv/OhTofu. So feel free to stop by and say hello. And that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm out of here. Until next time. See ya. Take care. See ya. See you later. See ya.